Tuesday, November 3rd, 9:02, Policy Subcommittee for the Berlin-Boylston Regional School Committee, Transition School Committee. We have two main things on the agenda today, unless Cliff, you have, Jeff, you have anything else you want to be tossing on?
No, just stuff
Okay.
that's on there. It's good.
Okay. Christy, do we have any, I don't think we have any members of the public on, is that right?
No, we do not. Nope.
Okay. All right, so let's forge ahead.
If I may interrupt, the picture that Christy uses here to designate that she's on, you'd never know she had an injury of any kind. She looks fantastic.
I know, that's right. All right.
Thank you, Cliff. You can't see me in my sling. It's not pretty.
Oh, you have my
very
signature.
Limiting. Are you okay
Thank
typing, Christy? I bet you it would be difficult.
I'm doing a lot of hunt and peck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There. I was doing that recently too. Okay, so the COVID quarantine policy discussion. So Christy uploaded some information from the email we received to the drive, to our folder on the drive. And I cut and pasted some additional information from that email into it as well. I wasn't sure if it shows for you. So if you could open that document in the shared drive. It's called Suggested Travel COVID Language from Nurses.
Taking me a minute.
Okay. Do you have it open, Jeff?
Yeah.
And Jeff, do you see the red language I cut and pasted in?
By the way, I can't see it as well.
You can't see it?
No, I can. I am able to.
Can.
Yes.
The red language?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Okay. Okay. I'll just wait for Jeff to come back. I'm not sure how far afield he is.
Susan, you added the red language to that?
Yeah, that was from I cut from the email. Christy had put in some of it, but the red language had gotten left out. So I added that back in because there was some rationale there. I thought we should be revisiting. Are you with us, Jeff? I'm not sure. You're not in the picture.
No,
okay. Okay. All right. So Jeff, do you want to summarize this or do you want me to?
I met with I've been meeting with the nurses, and one of the things they're concerned about, and I agree with them, is that according to the Massachusetts travel order, you have to have if you leave the state, you go to a high risk state, or you travel outside a low risk state, you're required to produce either quarantine for 14 days when you return, or get a test 72 hours before you come back, which doesn't, and they don't like that. And we had a case with Steve Pusateri, as a matter of fact. He went to Montana for a wedding, and he got the test, and he came back and he's coughing like a fiend. And I'm like, so I said, Bob, I said, you know, because I got his test. He gave me his test. He was negative. But it made me realize, and he's fine, but it made me realize that, you know, you could get the test 72 hours before you leave, get on the plane, which is probably a very high risk place to be.
It's actually supposed to be one of the lower areas to.
Oh, is that right?
Lower risk now, yeah.
But
still,
but not airports. Airports are high risk.
Okay, so either way, and so I talked to Ann, and she said, you know, she said she'd been talking to the nurses, and all of the nurses in their listserv agree that that's an issue. So many districts have gone with just the hard 14-day quarantine, regardless of the test. And I tend to agree with them. And she wanted to get it done before the holidays. Thank you. She wanted to get it done before the holidays, because there are people who travel and they should know that if they have to quarantine, and then it also connected to this MOU that we did, because the MOU says that if you have to quarantine because some exposure at work, then you don't have to use sick time. But if you did something like this, you would have to use your sick time to quarantine. So it has a lot of ramifications, because the
So
exposure would not be at work.
So
what's the language that says you would have to use your sick time? Where is that language?
There's no language that says that, but it does say if you're exposed at work. The whole question was if we have to, first of all, there's no such thing as a self-quarantine. The FFCRA does not cover self-quarantining. You decide you're a teacher and you want to self-quarantine, you can't get the 80 hours of pay under the federal guidelines. You have.
Well, that's a really clear distinction, Jeff. If you're not exposed at work, then
you're exposed someplace else.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a very clear distinction. I think that's a good one.
Right, and so we would get teachers who, because they've asked this, what about, like, what if I need to self-quarantine? It's, well, either a medical professional has to tell you have to self-quarantine, or we have to require it. And we would only require it if the nurse said that you needed it. So there is no self-quarantining. If you decide you want to self-quarantine, then you have to take your own sick time. See, they don't want to burn through their own sick time. That was the whole issue during the reentry. That their rep from the MTA said, why do they have to use their own sick time?
Well, that just makes this really important to clear up right now before the holiday season.
Yes.
Because people may make bad decisions about Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm using the judgment bad decision.
I'll just think, what's the big deal? I'll just get tested and then, so you have a whole family that goes to Disneyland because you can get it for $3 a plane ticket or something, and and think, well, we'll go down there. Well, that's fine. I mean, we can't stop them from doing that, but you're gonna have to quarantine when you come back. It's gonna be 14 days, and you're gonna have to use your sick time because it doesn't qualify under the provisions of the MOU, and you can't get, you would have to use your sick time because the FFCRA would not apply. So just think about that stuff,
I think that's fine.
We're talking about adults right now.
Yeah.
So what about the kids and the kids under 10?
Well,
if first of all, if they're home and their family travels to the high risk states and comes back, do they have quarantine restrictions?
we haven't done that. This is just aimed at traveling. So if you look at Northborough, Southborough, for example, it says ours is a hard 14-day quarantine no matter the age, but this is all relative to traveling. If you travel outside the district.
So for students, then it's relative to students' travel.
Correct.
Okay, so
I think we should generalize it. Any age, just say if you travel any age, that if you're connected to this district and you travel, no matter what age you are, you will be required to have a 14-day. Because again, parents send their kids away for,
okay, hang on. So there is language in the state law that says children under 10 don't need to get tested. And so what we're saying is we're just going to ignore what the proposal is here is that we ignore the testing recommendation completely and just say if you travel out of the if you, the staff member, or you, the student, travel outside of the low-risk states, then when you return, you need to quarantine for 14 days.
Right.
Right. I agree with that.
I think if you look at Anna, it said, with that being said, the Berlin Boylston district nurses would like to propose that if staff/students travel outside the low-risk states, staff/students would be required to a 14-day quarantine regardless of test results. So I think that statement right there would do it. And then he said, we feel this is the best way to maintain the lowest risk environment possible to reduce the risk of exposure in our schools. I think just that sentence though would be good to incorporate into the statement.
I'm trying to find where that language is.
It's at the it's
Oh, here it is.
at the
Okay, I see
email,
it.
at the
Yeah.
bottom of the email.
The second part of the red text on this document. If staff students travel outside the low-risk states, staff/students would be required to a 14-day quarantine regardless of test results.
Right.
I can't find, now I can't find it.
I'm highlighting it, Jeff, Cliff, on the Google Doc.
Cliff, if you have the email that I sent originally that had
Yes. But Cliff, you said you could see this red text on the document, right?
On the nurse's document, yes.
And I just highlighted it in yellow. Do you see that?
No, I don't.
Oh, that's odd. Okay, so if you want to find, you know what, Jeff, you didn't send this to Cliff originally, so I'm going to forward it to him.
Yeah, his name is on it.
Oh, there he is on the second. Yep. It's from October 21st, 5:13 p.m.
You know, I love Google Drive. I hate Google Drive.
No, this is in your email box though.
Oh, well, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, it's a whole nother. Where's that language in that, Jeff, actually?
What's that?
I'm just looking for where let me see, where the actual, here it is. Okay, I got it. October 21st, Cliff.
Yeah, I'm looking. If I can't find it.
5:13.
I've had some problems with my Google Mail and my computer.
Okay, well.
Apple does not like Google Mail.
Let's go back to the Google Doc for a minute where you could see the red text.
Okay. Yep.
In the second paragraph of the red text,
Yes.
the end of the first line and the second and third lines are the text we're talking about.
Yes.
If staff/students travel outside the low-risk states. Do you see that?
Well, I see it, but not in those words. Yes.
Okay, that's the language we're talking about for this policy.
Okay.
If staff/students travel outside the low-risk states, staff students would be required to take, it should be, or something, a 14-day quarantine regardless of test results.
Okay.
Now, currently, low-risk states are only Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York, which could change any day, plus Washington and California.
Yeah.
So basically,
You know, I thought about that. It's because it's also possible that, it's also possible during this period of COVID that Massachusetts becomes a high-risk state.
right.
And then, so I wondered if we should just change it, maybe modify it to say outside of Massachusetts. I don't know if that does it.
I'm not sure that, because Massachusetts might go in and out of being a high-risk state at various points. So we shouldn't write the policy as if it's only in one of these conditions. I think we could add a line on that says, if Massachusetts is declared a high-risk state by the governor, then any travel outside of Massachusetts, well, I don't know. At that point, what difference does it make? Any travel anywhere is problematic.
Well, yeah, and think about this Friday, the governor's stay-at-home advisories in place. I mean, you're not even supposed to like go out of your house between, what is it, 9 p.m. and
Right.
So
Um,
I think the
You know, and
generic,
also-
I think the generic outside of the low risk states is probably the best we can do because everything keeps changing.
right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, we can say that, you know, we expect families to follow the governor's advisories regarding travel, Couldn't we? I mean, just to put that back on there, you know, if they're advising against travel, period, then we need people to pay attention to that.
Well,
Just
you know what
reiterate it.
we can do, we can put that as the first statement that we expect all staff and students to observe the governor's travel orders in addition. And then we could put the thing about the 14-day.
Yeah,
In addition, anyone traveling, any student or staff traveling outside low risk areas will be required to quarantine for 14
Yeah.
days. So that could be a condition after the general statement. We expect everybody to adhere
follow
to
the
the
governor's.
governor's and then do something in addition to that, something more specific with the
Yeah.
14-day quarantine.
Okay, so since I'm supposedly taking notes, so the first statement will be that we expect all staff and students to comply with the governor's travel orders, right?
Yeah,
That we just said. And then the next statement would be, if staff and students travel outside the low-risk states, staff and students would be required to complete a 14-day quarantine regardless of test results.
correct.
And maybe in addition, staff and students would be.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Now, is a couple of things. Jeff, how do students participate if they're in quarantine like this? They come back, they have to sit in quarantine for 2 weeks?
We would treat them as if they would be like a long-term suspension. We provide them their work.
So they can't attend through
They could
Zoom?
they could do their remote. When they're in a remote session, they can do their remote session, obviously. And then when they're supposed to be in school, they would just get their work.
Okay. And how is, so that's already part of teachers' responsibilities?
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
not
staff would
changing.
be a little different because matter of fact, they just asked this yesterday, and been discussing it with Russ, because they want to, if they have to quarantine just in general, they want to be able to teach their class remotely. So they would want to stay home. It's a little bit different than the travel piece. This just speaks to quarantine. They want to stay home, and then they want the district to hire a sub to sit in the class while they teach it remotely. And they say they propose that so there can be consistency in the classroom instruction. However, what I suspected is that if they teach remotely, they don't have to use the FFCRA or their expanded family leave option, 80 hours. And they would just get their full pay, because it would just be like they're teaching, they just wouldn't be in school. That's the real angle. They just don't want to have to apply for that, because that doesn't give them their full pay. And then they have to use their sick time to make up the difference. And they don't want to go through that, because that requires the employer to okay it. So I told
Well,
them,
it's sort of a both and situation, you know, I mean, I could imagine feeling like, well, I'm just sitting at home, you know, I'm fine, but I'm sitting at home. I could go ahead and teach my class. So in that case,
I don't, philosophically, I don't care. I don't have that much of an issue with it. Probably if it's better for kids, I'm good with it. But there are also conditions because someone may not be, they may be symptomatic, in which case I don't want them teaching kids because they could be really symptomatic. It might be more, if it's just a runny nose or some chest congestion, they can teach. If they're really bad, they won't be able to do that. So I don't know. I've still been thinking about it, but anyway, it's a little bit different than the students. Either way, the teacher would be home. They're still required, no matter what, whether they're teaching or not, they're still required to produce sub-plans and do everything as if they would be out for the day.
And the students still have regular access to their classroom learning, basically.
Yeah.
They receive assignments on in-school days, and they can attend by Zoom on remote days.
Yeah, it doesn't change all that much for them.
Okay,
except they're
that's
not
the
there.
main thing I'm concerned about is
Yeah,
I don't want to put us in by this policy, put us in a pickle where kids can't access their learning. And then they start getting really spotty, more disruption to their learning. So if you think that this is pretty much continuous, it sounds like they'll miss classroom instruction. So the part that I don't understand is while they're quarantining, they'll miss 4 days of classroom instruction.
right.
And yet they're expected to do assignments.
Right.
How does that work? I mean, how can they be successful with
Well, I'd
that?
have to work it out with the teachers. I don't know how it would work. They'd have to work it out with the teachers, but I can tell you that if you send them back in the classroom, that's going to cause more disruption because the teachers
Yeah.
are going to have a problem.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not
there's no good,
proposing
there's no
that.
good answer to this. There's no real good solution to this problem. If you
So
don't do it and they're sick, then we might end up having to close a whole cohort.
So it's more like it's like a kid is on a sick day. So
Right,
they still are
okay.
getting assignments, but they're missing class time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so somehow along here, if a teacher feels like, okay, they're not going to be able to do this without the instruction, I don't know, if this is creating extra, I don't know, burden for the teacher in terms of catching kids up. If quarantines start to be, a lot of quarantines.
Well, if there's a lot of quarantines, we'll start shutting the district down. I mean, at some point it's a cluster and something else has to be done. This really only applies to, we don't get a lot of traveling normally. This really only applies around the holidays. That's when people tend to do
Yeah.
that kind of trips. Someone goes to New Hampshire for the day and comes back, that doesn't really apply. Even the governor said, you can drive outside the state. I drive to Rhode Island and come back in a day, right? So it's not the kind of trip. This is really, someone takes their kids to Florida. They go to some, they're thinking about doing some family trip to some, some high risk state. Well, that's something they need to think about in this environment. I mean, I don't think there's a way around it.
I think if the school committee approves this, and I want to come back to the idea of fast tracking this in a second, but if the school committee approves this, then I just think that your language and the principal's language, when obviously we need to give this some airtime because travel time is upon us. And so people need to explain the repercussions for kids. So if your family decides for whatever reason that they need to travel into a high-risk state for the holidays, you need to understand this is what it looks like when you come back. Students will be given assignments as if they were on a sick day, and they will be expected to participate in remote classes while they're quarantining and to complete assignments while they're quarantining on their own.
Yeah,
It
we'll
just seems-
handle all that internally. You know, you
Yeah,
have to remember, every year, and you know, one of the things about this district is you have some people with money, and they'll just tell you, 2 weeks before, 2 weeks before vacation, I'm taking my kids out. We're going to see my family in Arizona. Well, they're gonna miss 2 weeks of school. Well, they'll make it up when they come back. Boom, out the door. You know,
Right.
and that happens, and Diane deals with that every single year, she said.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, there's a whole group of people who just like, you know what? I'm going, so I'm taking my kids with me. My kids get A's, a good student. I'll make it up. It's not your concern. And so,
well, and there are also families that have legitimate reasons for needing to see family members
Yeah.
elsewhere during the
Right.
holidays. And so, we just have to make sure that they understand what this means for them in when they return to the area for the kids learning. I just think that's important for the staff and administration to communicate clearly. So we're not just putting a policy out, we're helping them think about decisions that impact their kids' learning.
But this policy, how would I want to say this? This policy is for the greater good.
Yes,
It's all
it
about,
is. That's
it's all
right.
about school community and the community at large.
I
So-
agree.
So it's an acknowledgement that we have to be concerned about the greater good for all of our children, staff, and citizens.
Right. And
And
that should be stated.
yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's missing. I'm not criticizing our school system this way, but I find generally in the culture, that's the message that's not conveyed often enough. This isn't just a regulation, a rule, a policy for no reason. We're looking at the greater good of the community at large, and that's the purpose.
Yes, I think that's very important in terms of setting out rationale for a policy like this. And so two things are coming to mind. One is, does this policy, I hadn't looked, does this policy fall within the big umbrella COVID policy, or is this a standalone policy?
I would say the place to put this is EBC, the supplemental.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, we need to
COVID.
call that up. Let's see.
That really is
Um,
the best place to put it, because it really only applies during COVID.
Right, agree. But I'm wondering where in there,
Well, it's a series of bullet points, so I don't think it matters. We can just put it right at the end.
as its own piece in there, okay. I
Yeah,
wondered if
because
there's
I was
already
looking through
something
it,
in-
unless you've seen something else, I would like to put it as a separate bullet, and just put a heading, travel, something like that. So it's something
Yeah. Very simple, very clear.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
because I
So
don't see, I was
that
looking
goes
at
with
EBC.
EBC supplement,
EBC supplement.
yeah.
Yeah,
to be
I see a
added.
lot of bullets, but I don't see anything on travel unless I missed it. But I don't think it's in
Yeah,
there.
I'm just looking, see if I can find where that final EBC is. I'm having trouble finding it. I thought it was September. Didn't we just approve it in
Yeah,
October? Hang on.
I have a paper copy, so it's got to be in there because Christy made it for me. So I was trying to figure out where would this, because this is really just as opposed to being a policy, this is just really a statement. That's like an interim kind of statement for this year or however long this COVID lasts.
Hang on.
Yeah, there is no subheading for travel. It's
Yeah, I
just
didn't see any.
It's
You
just a
haven't-
bunch of bullet points. Maybe you want to have a bullet point that says travel.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I misunderstood. I apologize.
Yeah, just a whole separate bullet point that says travel or.
Yeah, and then the statement under that. Okay.
There it is, ABC
I
supplement.
can't imagine. I can't believe, Susan, that I found it before you because
Yeah.
I am such a
you
clunk
go.
in these Google Docs.
Susan's blowing up.
All right,
But you'd
let's
already
see
have
here.
that.
Let's see.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I see,
this
yeah.
is the only arena in which I use Google Docs. I don't use them in any other place in my life.
All right, hang on. I'm just scanning this for a minute. Well, there is one that's student absence and attendance. Let's see. But I think travel, it makes sense to have a travel heading.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it at least highlights it a bit, you know. when
Yes,
it's
right.
Headline.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that. All right. You got that, Cliff? We're okay on that? Now, what about,
Sure.
I mean, what about this idea of fast tracking this and not, and asking the committee to vote on this? We have to do this with Jim. Jim's the one who decides this, but asking the committee or asking Jim if we can have the committee vote on this on a first read.
I think that's really important. And aren't you the chair at the next meeting?
I am.
There you go. That's the answer to it.
All right, you've got the power.
And so we can, that's up to the chair, right? The chair doesn't have to have there are no guidelines on.
Well, the chair in consultation with the superintendent sets the agenda.
Okay.
And you as the chair can say that, you know, in light of the importance of this policy,
Yeah.
I'm recommending that the committee take action on this without doing the normal procedure of first read, then approval.
Yeah.
And if someone gets sticky about it, which I seriously doubt, you could have a vote. You could have a vote to do that and then actually do the policy.
You can put it in the agenda too, next to the item, just put vote to accept on first read.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to vote first to do that, right? And then vote on the policy.
Not necessarily. You can put it in and stipulate at the meeting live and in person why you're doing that.
Okay. So the committee does not have to vote to do this on a first read.
No.
Okay, so chair's prerogative. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless it
All
comes
right,
to discussion.
I guess we are good on that item then. Yes? Is there anything else we need to do for that? All right. So now I've lost my agenda here. Hang on. So the second item was to take another look and see if we can wrap up these technology revisions. And what we got hung up on last time was that we didn't understand all the little highlights and stuff that the leadership team had noted on these documents. And so we had asked Jeff, Christie to see if they could make sure to find out what people's comments meant and whether you could speak to those. So I'm wondering, Jeff, if you were able to do this and whether you can speak to the changes that they've noted in these documents.
Okay, so if you want to start with IJND.
Yeah.
I've talked to Paul about this empowered digital use. And he says the same thing. Actually, it's in red there. We don't know what this document is, and he doesn't know what it is. And he's the tech guy, so I don't know. I guess we can keep looking around for this. I have no idea what this empowered digital use form is. I can't find Paul can't find it, Christie can't find it, so unless somebody. Let's see.
Is it different from the acceptable use? I mean, is the
suspect it
language
is the
underneath
acceptable
here,
use policy.
is
Talk
it
Paul,
relevant
says
to
I
the
think that's
acceptable
what
use
it's
policy?
Did this
I don't know
empowered
why
digital
someone calls
use
it
come
empowered
from the
digital use.
MASC or?
This
I'm
was
wondering
done in
if
Where'd that come from?
2015.
it's the same thing, as he
This was
says, is
approved in
this our acceptable
2015.
use policy?
Um,
All students.
Cliff, were you? Uh-oh.
Prior to using,
I think I dropped out here.
yeah, I think we just had trouble too.
Okay.
Yeah, I fell out too. I'm back.
So if I was asking, this was done in 2015. This was before I got here. Do you remember anything about this? Do you remember? You know, this almost looks like somebody, it was the acceptable use policy and somebody wanted to give it a different
Name.
name, you know.
But do
someone-
students sign the acceptable use policy?
Yeah, they have to.
They do, okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
why
I always remember there being an acceptable use policy in my tenure on the committee, but I never remembered anything called an empowered digital use. But, you know, we weren't always, as in, how shall I put this politically correct? We weren't always very involved in policy prior to Jeff's arrival. How shall I put that? I guess that's how I say it. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of discussion around policy. Let's just put it that way.
it looks like, when you read it, it looks like the acceptable use policy.
Yeah, I think maybe this heading should just be changed to acceptable use.
Yeah, I think so. I think so
Acceptable
too.
use.
Exactly what that, you know, for Paul not to recognize it. And I
Right.
said, "Well, this looks like the acceptable use policy." He goes, "That's what it looks like to me too." He goes, "I don't remember this." Again, someone made this change and never said anything to him either, because he was here in 2015. And because he has no idea what this says.
So one edit here then is to change empowered digital use heading to acceptable use.
Right.
Okay. And then what was this messaging SP above that? Safety and security of minors when they are using email, instant messaging, parentheses, SP applications. Do you know what that is in reference to? I don't know what that SP means.
Safety protocol.
Oh,
But other than that, I don't know what that.
safety protocol applications,
Well, it's safety procedures, one of the two.
safety procedure.
Do we
Safety
have
and
safety
security.
procedures for instant messaging somewhere?
I'm not sure. Probably in acceptable use.
Internet safety measures shall be implemented that effectively address the following. So I'm not sure why the SP needs to be there. Does that have to be there? Because it's not even defined. And it's saying that safety measures shall be implemented for the safety and security of minors when they're using email, instant messaging applications, and other forms of direct electronic communications.
I don't know that the SP does need to be there because the heading is safety
Right.
procedure guidelines.
Yeah, yeah.
All
So
right.
let's delete the SP.
Yeah, got it.
And that's the only thing that's different in this document. I think that's everything for this one.
Okay, so two changes. We're going to
Yeah.
delete the SP after messaging, and we're going to change all references to empowered digital use to acceptable use.
Yeah. Okay, good. Check.
Check.
All right, IJNDB. Let's see what we have here. This is slow. I don't know if it's, okay, here we go. So it's true on all of these. If there's any reference on any of these to Berlin Boylston Public Schools, should be changed to Berlin Boylston Regional School District. That's the first change for all of these documents.
I cannot find IN.
Really? It's the second one in the policy subfolder.
Yeah, well, that's another whole
It's
thing.
IJ, it's IJNDB.
INJ.
No, IJN.
IJNDB. Thank you.
You got it?
Finally.
So the first change is to change all references across these documents from Berlin Boylston Public Schools to Berlin BBR, Berlin Boylston Regional Schools, School District, or schools.
Okay, I'll have to go through the document and identify all those. Okay.
No,
All
no,
right.
I think maybe Christy can update these, right?
I'll just put it in the notes. All right.
Yeah, put it in the notes and then she can translate the notes to the policy documents. The second, also wondering if expectations for acceptable etiquette during remote learning should be included in this policy. So I was recommending refer to district guidelines for acceptable etiquette during remote learning. Are there such guidelines? It sounded like there were, Jeff, but I'm not sure. Acceptable etiquette during remote learning.
Would that be under our remote learning plan?
Yeah.
In the reentry plan, probably, under Paul's section.
Let's make sure it's there before we tell people to refer to it. Acceptable etiquette.
So, yeah, so
No, I remember we did talk about that in leadership.
So I don't know that I would put a reference in here. I mean, I understand Paul's point. I don't know why it would be in this policy. Why wouldn't it be in the entry plan? Just
Yeah,
is there a separate policy? I mean, does it?
well, we have the acceptable use kind,
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Cliff, because this policy is not particular to COVID
No, it's not.
or remote learning. So, well, I guess there could be remote learning during non-COVID times.
Yeah.
So in the entry plan of the whatever it's called, I apologize for not remembering the term. You would just refer people to the technology acceptable use policy in terms of etiquette, wouldn't you?
I think there's more etiquette. It sounded to me like they defined more specifically what etiquette during remote learning should look like, but I'm not positive about that. Is that true, Jeff? Did they further define what?
I mean, I remember us talking about it, but I'm looking for it here. I remember Paul talking about do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
So I knew we wanted to put it in here.
Yeah, I don't know. I am mixed about this, Cliff. I feel like we could pass over this. I mean, the district has their own, those are procedures.
Yeah. I mean, we have general procedures for online stuff, for any kind of,
Yeah, I just think it's been covered in other places.
I'm just
I mean,
looking,
I can't pull them up in my memory bank, but
I'm just looking at the to the language in the policy and whether it says the district shall implement, procedures that blah, blah, blah.
I know we've sent stuff out, but I don't see it in, I know we've sent stuff out around remote learning.
It says the intent of this policy is to clarify certain cases that are clearly consistent or inconsistent with the intended purpose of this district, and to establish guidelines for users in the appropriate use of our network. It is not possible to list all possible uses, and the following is written to establish a minimum set of standards with regard to all uses of the network.
Are you reading it off the policy?
Yeah. Access through the network to data communications carried through other networks is subject to acceptable use policies of those networks. So basically it says, look, it's not going to cover everything, but here the minimum standards here are reflected in the acceptable use policy.
Well, we got the policy, we got the form we send out every year to kids, to families that they
Yeah.
sign. I didn't know how much else you need.
It says this agreement, the acceptable use policy spells out in detail our expectations for the ethical and proper use of the school's network. It
There you
must be
go.
signed by each user each year. And so I guess the only question is whether the remote learning etiquette expectations are included in the acceptable use policy.
Well, that would have been a one-off, wouldn't it, for this year?
Well, we know what we could do then. I mean, if you wanted, I'm looking, that's something we could put into the EBC supplement and just refer people to the acceptable use policy.
Well, but the acceptable use policy has to have this etiquette in there for remote learning. If you're going to refer them to that under COVID, then the acceptable use policy has to have that language. Otherwise, you would refer them to some separate thing about etiquette for remote learning.
Well, the etiquette's in here. Item 7, users shall adhere to appropriate and acceptable standards of conduct. Users shall abide by the generally accepted rules of network etiquette, which include, but are not limited to, be polite. Do not get abusive in your message to others.
Yeah.
Use appropriate language. Do not swear, use vulgarities or any other inappropriate language or emojis. Never.
I guess the question would be whether the district in their defining remote learning etiquette included anything beyond this, or does this cover it?
Well, hopefully policy is broad enough that it covers it.
Yeah, I would think so. It looks like reasonable, what you would expect, but I don't know what Jeff, do you recall what they talked about for etiquette for remote learning? It may also be about signing in on time, attending classes on time, that kind of thing.
But those are procedures.
Yeah, it was all kind of stuff it was all stuff you would, like all the stuff I don't do, like I sit on this ball and I move around and you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to sit still. And Paul had a list of things that when you're in a list of things that when you're in a classroom, a remote classroom.
Yeah, that's why I think that this policy is the overarching, is the umbrella, but any specific detail would be considered policy.
Yeah,
I mean not policy,
procedure.
I mean.
Yeah.
Put anything that was outside of the policy though. So
I don't know. I want the policy to say, don't sit on a bouncing ball.
No, because that's not
I think it could have a D though here under 7 that says, consult other district procedures such as etiquette for remote learning as appropriate.
Well, it says that this is etiquette that includes, but it's not limited to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could be fine leaving it. And that's just a procedure you're implementing. I mean, if anything, you could put it under the, well, see, remote, we're really thinking of remote learning right now as COVID related and not, although it could happen at other times that the district has some kind of, mechanical failure in the schools that causes them to, the high school to switch over to remote learning, for example, for a week while something is repaired, separate from COVID. But it seems like I think
I
we're
think this,
talking about more
I think this is
specific
pretty
procedural.
comprehensive the way it is.
Yeah, I'm okay leaving it. I think we should leave it.
What about the full legal name thing that's been highlighted by him?
Yeah, that's what I was saying first. I think that you mean the BBPSN references and the BBPS?
No, I mean on page 3 of 4, item
Oh, yeah, you know what you mean. Yeah. Where was that?
never reveal your personal address, full
Yeah.
legal name,
Yeah.
phone number, social security number. Why did he highlight that?
Highlighted.
That came up before because I think kids were they required to put their legal name, their full name on things? I thought they were for something. I can't remember what.
So he's recommending deleting that?
I thought we talked about this last time and that there were situations where kids were asked to put their full names.
Well, I know my granddaughter who's in 6th grade in the Dartmouth Public Schools is using Edgenuity.
Yeah, that's
And
what we're using.
And her name is in there.
Her full name.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's for record keeping purposes.
Right.
They're collecting her scores, her.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like the name is,
That's probably why.
let's just delete the full legal name because I think they will be asked to do that. It's the other private information that goes with the name that really
Yeah,
is
that's probably why, because we do
intrusive.
use the names when they have to register.
Yeah. So
Okay,
we're going to delete. We're going
that.
to delete full legal name. Okay.
Yeah. And then the very end of this policy, Ace was pointing out, it doesn't make sense to me to maintain a list and submit it biannually. The building administrator shall keep a record of all school classrooms, school activity-based websites, pages, including the name of the sponsoring organization group, webmaster, etc., and should be forwarded to the district technology office and updated biannually.
Yeah, they just don't want to. They don't want to. That's accountability. There's no way that should be taken out. Because
Yeah, I would think not. I would think
No.
not.
Because ultimately, I always say to them, if a teacher's going to a site, you're going to be responsible for it. You run the building, you're responsible. So you have to make sure that whatever site they're going to, they check what you first, or they keep a list of that stuff that goes to you, that you then forward to the central office. It's for accountability purposes. We get audited. We get calls about this stuff all the time. So they should be keeping track of that stuff. And typically, like, they don't want to do that. They don't want to do those. They don't like doing those kind of tasks.
Well, I mean, it is accountability, but it is, it's one of those many tasks that takes you off being able to visit classrooms and focus on instruction. But is this a list of pages that teachers are using for instruction, or it's not? I don't quite understand activity-based websites pages. What does that mean?
Any websites they go to where they're having kids, not necessarily that they're going to, but if they have a website that they're using in the classroom, because they go online and they find stuff that they want to use.
Right.
Well, we don't want them to, they use their judgment on it, but they have to, like, if they find something that's good, they might not have time if they're going to use it that day to then go check on it. We expect them to use their best judgment.
Right.
But at the same time, they should send that stuff to the principal so that he can recheck on that to say, you know what, maybe you should rethink this, or oh, let's check with Paul on this because there's something in here that Paul might be interested in.
Can you give me an example of what kind of web page would land on this list?
That well, any of the stuff that they pull up from like GBH or something like that, and then those have all been vetted, but we want to know where they go. National Geographic stuff.
It just sort of feels unwieldy to me. Like, I mean,
don't know.
now that we're using technology more, there could be a dozen instances in a day, particularly when you were dealing with remote learning. There could be
It's
a
not
dozen
the ones they go
instances
to,
in a
it's
day,
the
right?
ones they decide to use, and they're not using a dozen a day. They can go through them, they can go on them and use them, so they don't have to do that. We're just concerned about, I mean, listen, ultimately, we're not concerned about a teacher going to an inappropriate site. They land on it, they land on it. It happens to everybody. It's what they decide to use in the class. And so, they sift through a lot of them. And so if they're going to go to an art page, the art teacher, and some kind of artwork comes up that they think is inappropriate to use for a third grader. So they don't use that. So we don't hold them accountable. They have to
No, I understand. I just still feel like we're sending kids to a lot of sites these days. And it feels like this would be really a cumbersome task.
I don't know. I think I disagree a bit with you, Susan. I haven't been in the classroom in a while, so I'll confess that up front. But, if you have a log, paper and pencil log, and when you have kids going on to a site, you just make a note of it and you keep a log and you submit it to the principal after a week or whatever. I mean, like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not a big deal.
What's the deal?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd hate it. I'm just saying, from a teacher point of view, never mind the principal having to compile all this, but from a teacher point of view, I would find it really just a slog and an interruption to my thinking about what I'm doing, frankly. It's a record-keeping task.
that's absolutely fair. I mean, I don't have any, I understand that, trust me. But I think there must be there's probably a clean methodology for doing this that's not burdensome. I just don't happen to know it right now, but
Yeah, I don't know what it is either.
They go through 10 sites and they find one they like.
Yeah, but even in one class, in one lesson, you might be sending kids, you might give them options, for example, to choose from several different sites to go to explore some subject.
Well,
right?
You don't keep track of it, and a parent says, where's this site my kid's been on? Now they can't find the site, or now I don't know what I did then, and I don't know what that site was. Who's going to answer to that? I can tell you. It's me.
Yeah, no, I understand the accountability issue.
Well, there's an accountability issue. We need to.
I'm wondering if Paul might, first of all, this feels sort of procedural to me, but I'm wondering if Paul might devise some efficient method. If there's any kind of efficient method. I don't know if there is.
I think, Susan, I think that's great. I think this needs to be in here, but I think Paul might be the guy who would be tasked with creating the simplest, most efficient way of doing that, and to give it to the schools.
And to consult with teachers in doing that.
And that's a procedure. That's a procedure.
Principals.
If teachers and principals are finding this burdensome, I think what we want to say as a school committee is, well, we understand that you feel it's burdensome, but we think it's important, as a school leadership, come up with a clean and easy way of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a cleaner way to do it than what's being done here, to do it at the teacher level. There's no way Paul's going to be able to.
I think it's important that it be there. I'm not willing to remove it. So I think it's important.
All right. Okay. So that's our task. So that's only a suggestion for me.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Is to think about an efficient way to do this, because, ultimately, we ultimately, you want to ensure that teachers and principals have the maximum of time possible to focus on the instruction, the teaching and the learning, and not to be caught up in a ton of record keeping that's really ancillary. It's critical, but it's you know, it's taking them away from being able to put their time on teaching and learning. So I just think that that's up to you. That's your leadership challenge. From a policy perspective, then we would leave 20D in place. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. 20D. So 20D stays there. All right. Is there anything else in this policy that we've missed? What's this one up on bottom of page 1? Cancellation of the privilege. It seems to me, given our current format and even regular computer usage prior to COVID, this would amount to a suspension from learning and should require suspension paperwork and due process. So,
I should have got to him before he even wrote something like that.
what? Say that again, Jeff?
I should have got to Ace before he even wrote something like that. That's not even close to being a suspension.
Have electronically limited patron access to objectionable and inappropriate materials. Limited access systems are not foolproof. We shall also rely upon the end user. Cancellation of privilege. Yeah, I think cancellation of privilege. This is, well, if you, I mean, I see the connection he's making, particularly during remote learning. If you have violated, you know, policies and you are then canceled from being able to use the technology, then you don't have access to learning during remote instruction. Isn't that true, Jeff?
Well, yeah, I mean, at some point, if someone can take that's not his argument, though. His argument is, though, there should be some due process, and there is due process. We don't just cut people off. We don't cut kids off because they go to inappropriate sites. I mean, they, you know, we go through the paperwork with them. Well, if they go to someplace they shouldn't go, we talk to them. We re-talk to them. We talk to them again. We talk to their parents.
Okay.
We don't want to do that, but at some point they can't go to porn sites. You know, they can't do stuff that
Yeah.
they can't go to sites that, like, they find ways to get on their friend sites and screw around with them and
Yeah.
get into their work and do stuff like that. So it's not even that they go to like inappropriate sites. Is that they get onto their friends' sites. They're pretty quick, so they hack into their friends' computers and they change words, you know, and they screw. So that's all inappropriate. And you know, we don't just. His argument is the due process thing. So, well,
I would say that the due process argument is addressed through the student handbook.
At least.
I mean, the student handbook guarantees due process to students in terms of behavior and discipline.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd go along with that.
I mean, I haven't seen the language, if there's any language in there in regards to the acceptable use policy in the handbook. But, you know, the purpose of a student handbook is to articulate not only the do's and don'ts, but also how your rights as a student are protected.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you can make a case that is addressed in the student handbook, although I have not looked in the student handbook to see that, but you know, I would think it's there.
When kids are suspended, Jeff, are they do they have access to learning while they're suspended?
A regular suspension? Like a
Yeah.
regular, yeah.
Yeah,
They get work. They have to by law.
they have to be by law. I'm sorry,
Right.
go ahead.
So there is no such thing as a suspension from learning.
No, we got it. We have to. There used to be, not anymore. Not anymore. Kids used to just go home.
That was,
Yeah.
yeah, I was a principal a very long time ago, and it was for 20 years, and all those years we would have to provide
Most
education.
people
and
did
instruction.
anyway. Most people would do it anyway, but now you can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Okay,
If
so
it's-
just
if
an,
it's after more than 10 days, you have to send a tutor.
Yeah,
so just a note then in the minutes, Cliff, that the ACE's comment, bottom of page 1, top of page 2.
I don't actually have that. I can't find it, so you're gonna have to be specific here.
Well, a comment from ACE about cancellation of privilege,
Yeah,
bottom of page 1, you can put in parentheses, should just be deleted.
okay.
And that's it for this policy.
All right.
So there's only one small change, and that's deleting the reference to full legal name.
And all the changes in the references to the district.
Right. Yep.
And the deletion of the comment regarding cancellation. of
Yeah,
notification.
deletion of the comments, but that wasn't
Okay.
in the body, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, let's go on to the next one. IJNDC. This is,
Internet publication.
okay,
Yeah, this is an interesting. So that first one, we have a webmaster now. We should probably refer to that.
so the,
Person responsible for overseeing the school's district website. We should have webmaster in there.
yeah.
I don't know how we put it, but that we have that position now.
So we'll just add Carol's comment there. This person shall be referred to as the webmaster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, I think I stuck in there. I'm not sure if somebody else did. Put in parentheses there, file IJND, because that's the access to digital resources policy. So that just gets added.
I am not seeing that. Wait a second.
Yeah, are you looking at a hard copy, Jeff? I mean, Cliff?
I am looking at oh yeah, I see it. I'm sorry, apologize.
Okay,
I overlooked it.
all right.
So you wanted to say access to digital resources policy, IJND?
Yeah, in parentheses, yeah. File IJND is how they always refer to it in these. And then after that comes, this person shall be referred to as the webmaster.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds kind of ominous, doesn't it? The webmaster.
Webmaster.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a non-sexist term.
Yeah.
You might want to change that name.
Webmaster, because it's not non-sexist?
It is sexist.
I mean, sexist because of the word master?
Gender specific, yeah.
Master. So a woman can't be master? I didn't realize that.
Well, in real estate, we have to stop using master bedrooms, so
Oh, you did?
Really?
yeah.
What do you call it now?
Because actually in real estate, it violates fair housing.
What do you call it now?
That's
The
interesting.
person who pays the mortgage bedroom?
Bedroom one. We call it bedroom one.
That's
That's interesting. I never associated the word master with male. necessarily.
Well, I recently had to attend a long course on fair housing because it's become a big issue in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons you don't call it a master bedroom is that because there are often no men in the house.
Oh. Well, remember when they used to call in the old days, and you'd get a house phone call and someone would say, "May I speak with the master of the house?" That was highly offensive. So maybe it's right up there with that. Okay.
Well, see,
Well,
makes more sense because I've never seen master as being, as referring to a gender. So the master of the house could be
Could be a woman,
the woman.
right?
Yeah,
Right,
still.
it's the person in
it-
charge.
It would still
If
be
you're talking about
perceived
the
as the
house,
master.
it probably is.
So someday when you have no, time on your hands, we should change that from webmaster to something else.
All right, something to look into. All right, the next paragraph. Staff members may publish web pages related to their class projects. They may not publish or link to personal web pages as part of the school district website. I think this, somebody wrote, I think this needs to be clarified. PE, for instance, uses an outside website. Paul notes, we have allowed, and it was even encouraged at one point.
This happened,
That's
this is,
not personal web pages though. Personal web pages means my Facebook page, right?
Or my personal teacher page that I have created through some outside service.
I think the bigger issue here was that, and this is something that, that Nadine allowed, because what was happening was in the current website, and this is why I want to change the website. Well, there's a number of reasons, but this is one of them. If you put a link to, in order for you to go to another website, you have to, if you link it, you completely leave the Berlin-Boylston website. So
Right.
if you're Jeff Zangi and you're a teacher, and I put a link on there as a teacher, it takes me out of my professional website, and it brings
Someplace else that you can't come back from.
and you can't come back from it. So it looks like if you're a parent, you go to my classroom in Berlin-Boylston Regional School District, you click on the link, you now leave that and you go into the Jeff Zangi website that he linked on there. So the way our website works, it doesn't allow you to link that stuff within the umbrella of BBRSD, and it should. Like I should be able to, if I'm a chemistry teacher, I should be able to put a science link that when you, like to National Geographic, but it stays in, you can get back to BBRSD. So it looks like part of my classroom. As soon as you click on these links, it takes you someplace else and you can't come back to BBRSD. So that's the personal part. It looks like you're now going to the teacher's personal website. Sometimes it is something personal, like they have their website. And it should be all under the umbrella of the BBRSD website, because that makes it.
It absolutely does make sense, and it should be that way for a lot of reasons.
Well, a lot of.
We have certain protections on our website, which you might not have on your personal website.
Well, yeah, and the other.
So to encourage students, I'm not worried about the parents, but to encourage students to go out of our website, which is protected in a variety of ways, to a website that we don't know whether or not it's protected, is a bad idea in my view. I mean, I work for a large real estate company. I have a separate website. I can't link my website to the company website. They're risk averse. They don't want to be in trouble for something that might go wrong with my website.
No, you shouldn't be able to. Like the whole 6th grade team, you go to their websites and it takes you to some other place. And to me, like you're saying, Cliff, you shouldn't be able to do that. You should be able to go to so if a teacher, if I'm a teacher and I want to have a link to some stuff I'm doing, if it's professional, it should stay within the BBRSD so that we can monitor it and we can say, oh, don't do that, or do this, or this is getting,
Absolutely.
they're going to do anything bad, but it's just that it takes you away from our website. That's why, and actually we would have had this locked down. It was scheduled for July. Because of COVID, it's gotten away from us. Again, we still keep in contact with the company, but the websites don't, like good ones don't do that. They're not designed like that anymore. If you're a teacher, you do all of this stuff within your space inside the district website.
Absolutely. When I was in Sudbury, that's how it was.
The
Teachers
reason why
have,
they allowed it is because they couldn't do that. And they said, well, we can't put any of our stuff there. We can't do links. We can't do any of this stuff. We have to go outside. We have to have the link that goes outside, and there's nothing we can do about it. And sure enough, you can't do anything about it, but it's not a good way to do business. And
Would you say that these concerns are different at all between the upper grades and the lower grades?
it's the upper grades that tend to do it more. They tend to put those kind of links on, but I would say it's
Well,
the same. I wouldn't say there's much of a difference. We have elementary teachers who do the same thing. Once you leave the website, you leave the website. And you know, the high school tends to have the learning tends to be a little more independent. So kids go
Right.
on and you leave a little bit more. Not you know, the younger kids, they're pretty you know, they're pretty savvy when it comes to this stuff. But they don't get as many independent learning projects where they can, okay, so Jeff Zangi, teacher, says go on and then go here. All of that stuff should stay within our website if it's connected professionally to a teacher. So and right now it isn't. So we can go out and check it. Like they can't hide it from us, but it still should be within our website. And so
I'm just thinking about a couple of things. One is what given the fluency we have on the internet these days for finding information about anything, what kinds of restrictions this may feel like to generating good instruction. That's one question I have, is what the impact is on what teachers want to be doing with students. And two, I just forgot, went out of my head. But anyway, so let's just start with that. What if we're already doing this and teachers are already linking outward? Oh, I know, I'm gonna say the second one is just the whole idea of becoming critical consumers of what's on the web. How do you teach students about that if they're always in a safe environment? Oh, the older students, I'm talking obviously, particularly the older students. If they're never in the position of being able to access stuff that's you could have debates about.
they can do that. They can do it on their own, and they can do it as a suggestion. But if you're doing it as a teacher and you're linking it on there,
I mean, it's part of the technology curriculum, right? To teach kids how to be critical consumers of technology.
I think that's Paul's thing. We allow it to happen. We allow it to happen, but there's also, we allow it to happen because we have no choice. If we say to them, you can't do that, then they won't put anything there. But the reality is we have a responsibility for everything those teachers do. So, you know, you want to put a policy in place as a school committee that says, you know, teachers can go anywhere they want. That's asking for a lawsuit along the line. We don't.
Well, I mean, you also are at the same time as the previous policy we're talking about, where teachers have to submit the list of every place they're taking kids to their principal, and then principals to you. So there is an accountability chain for every website that they go to, right?
Well, there is, but if they're gonna link to a personal website, they're gonna link to a personal website, and they're gonna do it as a staff member of Berlin-Boylston Regional School District, then it should be under, and it's used for instructional purposes. It's someplace kids go that they say you should go to, then they're gonna put a link inside their, you know, you go to my page, and within my page, I have a link there. That's not my link. That link falls under the BBRSD. If you want to say to a kid, if you want to give them a list of websites that aren't linked in your under your page, That's fine. We don't keep teachers from doing that. All we're saying is that if somebody goes to a teacher's website that's part of our web system, and there's a link in there, that link shouldn't take you now outside the district and then you can't come back. That's different than giving kids a list of websites that have been vetted by the teacher and say, just, you know, you can use these for your research project, or you can find your own and then, you know, tell me what they are and I'll check on them. That's
Okay.
that's you're giving them a list of
Resources.
or you might even say, I'm not going to give you anything. You go find them yourself. We don't stop that. But if it's part of our system, it should stay part of our system. It shouldn't take you out of the system and then not give you the ability back. And that's really the issue. Because you know, when we pay for that, we have responsibility for that. That's all under our, you know, that's all falls under the district. If a teacher gives a kid a list of websites and they didn't vet them, that's on the teacher. We
All
allow
right.
people to link out to their personal website and we don't say anything, that's on the district. That's a district paid for system.
Okay, so when you look at this, go back to this language then under part 2 of this policy, what would you propose this language should be?
I would say for, I think that we should, I don't know what the language should be. It should be, well, let me tell you how I feel about it. We let them do it, and there's a reason we let them do it right now, and I'm okay with it. It's because we don't have another option. We will soon. We'll have a, you know, and when we do, we'll change this. I don't know if there's a way to, you know, I would keep it like it is, because to take it out,
They may not publish or link to personal web pages as part of the school district website.
I think as a school policy, we're covered legally if you say you cannot do it.
And that's instead of the language which says they may publish web pages related to their class projects or courses after their material has been submitted to the webmaster for approval.
Right,
That's
where is that?
That's the current language right above it.
Oh, may submit their material to the webmaster.
So are we suggesting deleting that and substituting staff members
I
may
don't think
not
so.
publish a link?
I don't think those sentences are mutually exclusive because they were here before. Staff members must submit their material, their webpage material, for approval.
The original language allows them to have their personal web pages linked to the district website after review by the webmaster. The
Okay.
proposed language is no, they can't publish or link to the personal. They can't publish or link their personal web pages. Period.
Oh.
So what is it we want to say, Jeff? Do we
Yeah.
want to stick with the original language until we have a better website, or?
Yeah, I think I think as a school district, if you take that out and that someone links to a personal website and there's an issue with it, I think it would fall on the district.
Are they distinguishing two things here, that those first 2 lines have to do with web pages to do with class projects or courses? And in the 3rd line, they're referring to personal web pages as something different.
Okay, you're right, Susan. I misread that.
I don't think, you know, it's not defined what a personal web page is. And I think that's part of the problem of that sentence is, I assumed when I read that meant something like my personal Facebook page.
But it may be their personal teacher page.
Well, that to me would be the first 2 sentences. They're class projects or courses. So maybe we should say they can publish web pages related to their class, including projects or courses, but not to personal web pages such as personal Facebook pages or Instagram
LinkedIn,
links,
or
that kind of, yeah, right.
all right. So those two those. All right. So the original language, and
So
keep the
that,
original language, and add the staff members may not publish a link to personal web pages.
yeah, I think you could say in that first sentence, staff members may publish teacher web pages related to their class projects or courses. They may not publish or link to personal web pages. And you could say, e.g. or i.e. after that with a couple of examples to
I think I'm more
distinguish.
comfortable just leaving the original language in place and adding that sentence. I don't think
Adding,
I don't think I would tinker with the first two sentences.
Well, some teachers have personal teacher pages too.
yeah, well, what's a personal teacher page? That's an individual teacher page, but it's not personal, right? Personals, I think what they're getting at in that third
Yeah.
line is personal is about your personal life.
No, I could have a BBRSD teacher page, and I could have my own teacher page. People have Facebook teacher pages.
Really?
They have Facebook
Yeah.
teacher pages? I've never seen one. Oh, interesting.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah,
I mean,
people have personal pages that are their teacher pages.
so you're saying they're teacher pages that are outside of the BBRSD network?
Yeah, most people have some page. I mean, I don't use that stuff, but I'd be willing to bet every teacher in that high school has another page someplace.
Sure.
And it has personal stuff, but it also has teacher stuff on it. I see it on Twitter all the time. They have Twitter accounts where they list teacher stuff.
Okay, so
I have a Twitter account that's a Tantasca Twitter account. I have a Twitter account that I used to use to put out stuff that happened in the schools.
yeah, I guess I feel like I don't see this third sentence makes sense to me as I understand personal web pages. Maybe the language could be staff members may not publish or link to personal web pages beyond this school district's website.
Maybe we make the distinction between a professional web page and a personal web page. Maybe maybe we make it more broad, that we just say that.
Are you saying though, Jeff, that if they link to a teacher web page outside of BBRSD, that would be okay?
Well, no, we have no choice now. I mean, I say it's okay now because if you don't, you limit what they do with kids. You limit what they're able to do with kids. They should be able to link to an outside professional page, but it still looks like it's within the BBRSD website. We don't have an ability to do that. So if we do that right now, it goes back to what you say. We limit what they can do professionally with kids.
Yeah, my concern is I don't think they should be able to link to personal web pages, to their personal Facebook or Instagram or any of the other sites where they may be expressing their political views or language is free reign, all that kind of stuff. That's what I interpreted personal web pages as, and I would agree that they should not link to those.
Well, what if they had, what if they have an educator page that's outside BBRSD and they link to that? Is that okay?
I guess I'm having trouble imagining why that would be necessary when they have professional pages within BBRSD.
Well, because the teachers have been in 3-4 districts, so they start these pages, when they were, think about it, I've been in 6 districts. I could have started a
So if you go there, if you link to there, then you're also exposing them to all the language and chatter that goes on that comes from those people in those sites.
No, it might be just stuff I'm interested in. If I'm a science teacher and I have my science teacher page, and I just have links to science
Okay.
that I like, that I put on there, says someone gets a Nobel Prize. So I link that, right? Someone just got
Okay.
the Nobel Prize for chemistry. I link that on my personal teacher page. And I switch districts. Well, that page still exists.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess it's a matter of whether there's comments and interaction on those pages.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason teachers do that is so that they're not under the authority of the district, that they can just, if I just put a, if I have a superintendent webpage, it's just mine, just my page, and I just express my opinion about things that are going on in the educational world. Well, that's just my opinion on stuff, and I might link to stuff, and I may have been a superintendent in 2 or 3 districts. So it might be stuff like, I know guys who have blogs, for example, and they don't publish them on their own, they don't publish them on their school site, but they have personal sites that are educator sites, and they write stuff. And they publish their blogs that way. And they've
Yeah.
been, Todd
I,
God's, so.
I just think that you're getting into riskier territory, right? So a teacher may, for example, have a blog where he's expressing a lot of political views on, right, issues in education that have a political bent to them, and then you're exposing students to that. Whereas when you maybe shouldn't be. And whereas if you were limited to your professional page within the district, then you're not going to be having that kind of exposure.
All right, so say I'm a teacher and I have a teacher website, and I'm a civics teacher, and I put all my political views on there about some dictator on the other side of the world. Okay, now if that's linked from a BBRSD site, and it looks like it's on a BBRSD site, as a district, we can say, take that down.
Uh-huh.
I can, as a superintendent, say, and I've said it often, I don't want to see your political views on our stuff. This is not the place for it. However, if that links to someplace, if that's on our site and it links out to a personal site and you can't get back, that makes that argument a little more difficult, because now you're on his personal website and you're out of the BBRSD website. You got there through the BBRSD website, but you're now on someone's personal page, and now you can't get back. So now it disconnects you from BBRSD. It's just easier to say you can't do that stuff. If we had full control of it, see, we don't have it. This is not it's a function of the website we have. We don't have control of it. If that teacher has a personal website where they're, Jeff Civics teacher, and they put that stuff, there's nothing I can really do about that. That's your personal website. If you're linking it within the BBRSD website, and it looks like it's in the BBRSD website, when it comes up, it still comes up as Jeff Civics teacher Tohonto. The superintendent can say, oh, I want that taken down. Well, that's my personal website. No, when you linked it in our site, and it stayed in our site. And so when people go to it, it looks like an opinion that's expressed by a BBRSD teacher, because it stays in our site.
So in your view, it's okay to link to a personal web page like that, as long as they can somehow get back? Like if I embedded in that page, that outside page, go back to BBRSD. If I embedded something like that, then it would be okay?
Yeah, because we can control it. Then we have authority over that. And if there's something that has political views in it, we can say we don't want that. If it goes out to a personal web page and they can't get back, that just makes it a little more difficult.
This is a really good conversation, but I have to say the language that's there covers all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I
May
would just,
not publish or link to personal web pages as part of the school district website.
Yeah, I mean, it's covered. And I think that's a good sentence. And I think that, something may come up that, we'll have to revisit this, but I think it's good as it stands. With that
So
addition,
the exceptions that Paul is noting then need PE, for instance, uses an outside website. We have allowed it and even encouraged it at one point. PE would no longer be able to do that.
well, we don't know that. What do I want to say? We don't know that wouldn't be able to be used because if this language prohibits it, then it prohibits it. But it seems to me there must be a way that if it's really important enough for PE, then there's got to be a way of incorporating it.
Yeah, so he could give that list of resources for PE and include that, because that's not linking directly from his website. It's
Yeah.
a link of curriculum resources.
I'm also not willing to develop a policy for one specific subject.
No,
Yeah.
but this is just one example. If there's one, there's probably more.
see, my feeling on it was that, see, I knew that they did this stuff and I know why they did it, because they, it's not that they go to, I use that as this political piece just as an example, but that's not what happens. They usually just go outside to go to, phys ed related website that's outside our website. I don't like the fact that you can't get back once you're out there.
Okay,
I know it's
So-
there. I would let it happen until we get our new website. And then I would say that has to, you have two choices. You either don't do it or you put that within our website. You link it up inside our website. So when someone clicks on it, your website is now embedded in our website. And that makes everything a lot cleaner. Because now if they did happen to put something in there that we don't like, we could say that's not consistent with what we want to see. It's difficult.
but this language doesn't say you can do that. This language says you cannot publish or link to personal web pages as part of the district website.
Correct.
And are you okay with it the way that is?
I am.
Okay.
All right, so we are going to leave that untouched. All right, and in the third paragraph, we're inserting in section 4, that's in red.
Yeah.
And then on the next page, part 4B, student photographs. Yeah, well, this keeps coming back to haunt us. Student photographs may be published only with the written consent of the student's parent or guardian. And the question was, is that for each picture or is this a general release?
It's a general release. I don't know who asked that, but that's a general release. They sign it once a year.
Okay, annual, so we should stick in front of written consent. We have to say, let's insert annual written consent.
Published only with the, yep. Yeah, makes sense.
Noted.
Okay, and that's it, done. Check. IJNDD. DD.
Of course, I don't have that. Hold up.
Social networking,
Yeah.
page 2.
District employees should not connect with currently enrolled students as a friend, as a friend or contact using a personal social media account. However, teaching a classroom account for further education acceptable. Yeah, using a teacher's district email.
Insert that language. Okay,
This is the-
got that, Cliff?
No.
Insert.
I can't pull the file up for some reason.
Oh,
I'm working on it.
okay. Well, it is, you can make a note that accept the inserted language in part 4B.
Inserted language in part 4B.
So we're going to accept that language.
Got it.
Okay. In red. Okay. And then part 5, I don't know what this was highlighted for. Staff members shall only contact students via their personal cell phones for specific purposes. The BBPS prefers communication related to academic issues. There should be an S. Occur in class or be directed through district provided email addresses. So was that highlighted because prefer is not strong enough?
Yeah, I think that's not strong enough.
Okay, so 5B should be, what's the right language there? Requires,
Yeah,
change, prefer to requires.
and BBPS should be BBRSD too.
Yep, I think that we need that. I do have that, Cliff, that all 4 documents should be scanned to change Berlin Boylston Public Schools to BBRSD.
All 4 documents.
Yeah. And then 6B. Staff should provide the web address of his or her page to the principal or designee before disseminating the address to students. This seems counterintuitive. Why would we have the principal or designee disseminate this information? No, then it's not saying that the principal would designate this.
Right,
I didn't read it that way.
I don't either.
Okay. The staff have to just get it
Yeah, it just seems like an
by the
account.
principal before staff
Yes.
disseminates. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so no changes to 6B. Got that, Cliff?
No, I'm confused because I can't find the page. I'm sorry.
Okay, you can just make a note, no changes to 6B.
No changes.
And then 6C, insert parenthetical from CC, you can say, from Carol Costello.
Insert parenthetical.
From
C.
Carol Costello.
To 6C.
That's 6C, yeah.
Yes.
And that's the last thing. So I would say none of these are really substantive changes. Really, I mean, noteworthy of having to have a lot of discussion about. Would you agree?
Yeah,
Okay. Now, Cliff, let's just check in with you to make sure that you feel like you've got these notes okay. Do you need any clarification on anything?
No, I think I'm okay. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do a draft and send it to you, Susan.
Okay,
Um,
don't wait too long because I won't remember this.
oh, I'm going to do it as soon as we hang up.
Okay. No, I actually have a call with you as soon as we hang up, so it'll have to be after that.
Oh
Or
God,
do you
don't
want me
get
to call later? No, do it. You're right. You should do this first, as soon as we hang up. Why don't you call me when you're done with that? Okay,
Okay, I will do that.
all right.
I want to mention to the Berlin contingent here that, those apartment buildings they're building out there, the Riverview, Riverhawk,
River Bridge,
River Bridge.
River Bridge. So originally they said 29 apartments and then they went to 0 apartments. Well, I don't know what it's.
Oh, 0 kids, you mean?
0 kids. So far we got 1 kid, but that kid is an out of district placement. It's going to cost us 70 grand.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just the first kid. And the first kid who shows up out of there costs us 70 grand.
Well, I mean, that could have happened anywhere in town, technically, right?
Yeah. But it didn't happen there.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Sure the kid will be a good addition to the classroom, but that's too bad financially.
Well, he's an out of district placement.
Oh, he's going, oh yeah, right. To
Yeah,
somebody's classroom.
yeah, somebody, yeah.
Jeff, are there any issues, policy issues you anticipate coming up that will need our attention in December?
No, I don't anticipate any.
Okay, so why don't we plan to check in on policy subcommittee in January and see if there's anything on the, I feel like we front loaded a ton of our work this year for COVID.
Sure.
But let's not hold any dates in December, and I'll check in with you in January to see if we need a meeting then. By then, the world will have changed again, and we'll probably have to deal with something. But
Yep.
let's assume that December is clear unless something emergency comes up.
And
No
you know,
meeting.
I will be available till the last day of December should you need to.